Well, it's too late for a peace treaty with Russia. The jig is up. This ship has sailed. The book is closed. What, Clayton, you want to add any? The fat lady has sung.
Yes, the fat lady has sung. Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's what Jim Jatras said. He's a former State Department diplomat and an expert on U.S.-Russian relations. He is also, I want to point out, an original gangster for independent thinkers. He sent me this photo this week, and I had to show it off. This is Jim and two non-interventionist, America First pioneers, Ron Paul and Pat Buchanan. So he knows that of which he speaks when he speaks of foreign intervention, and he's here to warn us. Jim, do you have any other idioms you want to? The pants are falling. The laundry's done. I don't know. Let's just keep going.
Okay, let's stop with the pants right there. First off, I want to commend you guys for the great tribute you did to Pat Buchanan the other day. That was just really magnificent. I mean, one of the greatest Americans I've ever had the honor of meeting, and you guys really hit the nail on the head. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, well, okay, back to the pants. I wouldn't say it's too late for a peace deal. I would say there never was any prospect for a peace deal. That if you look at how dysfunctional the American government is, even if Trump really wanted to make a deal with the Russians, I don't think it could be implemented. I don't think he could make the American government do what he wants it to do. And even if he managed to do that for the balance of his term, it would not be honored in the long term. And I think the Russians don't want to admit that to themselves. They haven't wanted to all along. Oh, they went to Anchorage. They presented some proposals. Trump seemed to agree with them. And it didn't even last until the end of the meeting before Trump had walked it all back. I think the Russians are starting to figure that out. The question is, what do they do with it? We have this unfortunate upward spiral of escalation where the one side, the Western side, that doesn't hold any cards, keeps throwing more chips in and raising the stakes and escalating, and the other side that holds all the cards doesn't want to call, doesn't want to actually finish the war militarily, would rather the other side fold. So they'll keep incrementally raising the heat, taking more Ukrainian territory, killing more Ukrainian soldiers, and then saying, okay, now will you face reality? Will you now fold your cards? And we're not going to do that. So I think we've got this really this cycle that there's no way to escape from. It's going to keep escalating until one or two things happen, it seems to me. Either the Russians decide that there is not going to be any deal, that they actually go for the jugular, take out the Kiev regime, kill off the presidential administration, the Rada, the military intelligence, the secret police, and so forth, essentially liquidate Ukrainian state, or somebody crosses a line somewhere that nobody expected, and this thing becomes a direct conflict between NATO and Russia. I don't know which of those two things is going to happen, but those are the only two paths I see at this point.
And so Putin in all of this right now, I know one of the notes you had sent over earlier is, and you think one of the upshots here is this is going to continue to escalate at a time when war with Venezuela is looming, and then God knows Nigeria, whatever else whatever boondoggle we're going into right now. So Putin's got to be sitting there saying, man, the U.S. has no Tomahawk missiles left. They've completely almost dried themselves up right now. The Europeans, I mean, God knows what a disaster they are at this point. And so the lines that we think Ukraine exists at this point, where Odessa is still part of Ukraine, where these other areas are still part of Ukraine. I mean, we're talking about Ukraine not being a country very soon if this continues. Am I seeing it wrong?
Well, I think it's a little premature because remember, the Russians control about 1/5 of the territory of pre-war Ukraine. So they're a long way, at least on a territorial basis, from saying Ukraine will not be a state anymore. The question is when the Ukrainian army crumbles, which it may do at some point, what do they do with that? Do they come back and renew their demands from really June of last year, which are actually fairly minimal? You get out of the 4 oblasts that the Russians claim as Russian territory now, agree to neutrality, demilitarization, denazification, and at that point, they'll agree to a ceasefire. I keep asking myself, what would happen if the West actually accepted those terms? You would end up essentially with not the West winning, but the West not losing either. You end up with a Korea kind of situation where you have a demilitarized zone between a Russian zone and a NATO zone and a permanent frozen conflict, which is what the Russians say they want to avoid. So I think that's kind of the trap that the West would like the Russians to fall into. Unfortunately, they can't even spring their own trap. They can't even offer enough of an incentive for the Russians to bite. Now, maybe when the Russians complete taking control of all the rest of the Donbass, the line between a ceasefire line and what their constitutional demands are really has evaporated. In the meantime, as I say, we're going to see escalation. We're going to see more deep strikes into Russian territory that the Russians threaten severe consequences for, but they never do anything about because they're afraid, not afraid, but they don't want to see escalation. Nonetheless, that invites a perception of weakness and further escalation, which I think they're aware of, but they're not. They themselves don't know quite how to jump out of that box without doing something they think would raise the stakes considerably. And of course, the other thing you mentioned is Venezuela. I think we're increasingly seeing now. I don't think the war with Iran is over yet between the U.S. and Israel against Iran. We're about to go into Venezuela by all indications. I think the separate theaters of what is essentially a conflict between the global American empire, the gay as I call it, and the Eurasian bloc is increasingly becoming a single global conflict with several theaters that are starting to interconnect.
Let's refer to the map because Russian state media, RIA, has continued to, they have this update this map every day. What we're looking at right now is the red part is what was formerly Eastern Ukraine and is now controlled by Russia. They voted, those people voted there to join Russia. They asked Russia to come in. The dark gray line there is where Russia defines the end of the war. And we have been watching this for now 3 years, and we watch as that red just bleeds to the left. Do you think that Russia is going to hit the end of that dark gray line and stop? Do you think that they're good for it? Because there had been rumblings that they would continue to Odessa, and then Ukraine has really no Portland, they've taken all the mining of the precious metals, like then what? So do we take this map at its word? Because I've been watching it for years.
Yeah, that's the question, Natalie, because remember, the Russians have always said that the territorial question is not the most important one for them. Yes, the 4 oblasts that you point to are constitutionally, from Moscow's point of view, part of Russian territory, but their other demands are demilitarization, denazification, and permanent neutral status for Ukraine. How do they accomplish those things if their forces don't go beyond the gray area that you pointed to on the map? How do they enforce that if there's still a Ukrainian state that's outside of their control that is essentially an ally of NATO? I don't see how they do that. Now, sometimes you hear people talking about binding treaty guarantees. What is the worth of a signature of the United States on a document these days?
Right.
Can you trust it to be honored?
Right. Yeah, look at the Minsk agreements.
We go and not only that, we go and smack people in Qatar when we're busy negotiating with them. There's simply not only no trust I think on the part of the Russian side, but no reason to trust us that even if an agreement were made addressing these other points, it wouldn't be worth the paper it's written on. So I think that's the dilemma for the Russians. So I don't know what they will do once they get to that line.
I guess one yes or no answer here, Jim, on this, because I got to follow up. Does Russia hold all the cards?
Yeah, militarily they do. Yes.
So if Russia holds all the cards, then what does Russia want? What does Russia want to end this thing? If they hold all the cards,
what they want is the terms they've reiterated over and over again: demilitarization, denazification, neutrality, the 4 oblasts plus Crimea. The question is how can they secure that in a way that actually they can trust? And I don't think they know the answer to that. They would rather have an agreement. They want us to fold our cards. We're not going to do that. Let's remember, Clayton, at the beginning of this war, really wasn't the beginning, let's say the beginning of this phase of the war in February 2022, the plan A was for the Russians to come in shock and awe, destroy the Ukrainian state, occupy all of Ukraine, and then we could bleed them white in kind of an Afghanistan-style scenario. That's obviously not what they planned. They plan to come in, they'll make a show of force. The other side will say, oh my goodness, I guess the Russians are serious. We better agree to their terms. Well, that didn't happen, and I don't think it's going to happen. So I think that's where the dilemma is for them. They may have to occupy a lot more of Ukraine, maybe all of Ukraine, in order to make sure that their other goals, not just the territorial ones, but the denazification, demilitarization, and so forth, are accepted. But They really, really don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, to try to have to rule, it's already the largest country in the world, right? Do they want to rule more land? And then do they want to rule a group of individuals who don't want to be ruled by them? But how difficult is it to try to root out Nazis? I mean, they're so ensconced in that government. I don't know. Yeah, there's got to be some sort of agreement. I don't know how in the world you can rid them of it.
It would be a formidable task. Honestly, Clayton, I don't think it's as bad as it might look on the outside. Let's remember, except for the far, far west of Ukraine, all of Ukraine was either part of the Soviet Union or before that part of the Russian Empire. And I've talked to people from all over Ukraine, and a lot of them are anything but nationalists. They basically will play the game. Well, the nationalists here, the Banderas are here, whatever they want. We just want a peaceful life. We'll agree with them. What happens when the Russian comes? Well, whatever the thing, same thing. Whatever they want, we'll go along with it. We just want to have a peaceful life. I think actually the prospect of an Afghanistan-like insurgency in Ukraine, if the Russians had to take far, far more than they're demanding, is a lot less than people think. But obviously it's a risk.
Interesting. No, I think that's a great point. People just want to live a peaceful life. And you might have the Banderites and you might have these Nazis in there, but it might not be as bad as
I mean, imagine the war's over. You're not going to be kidnapped to war. And also we have an economy where our grocery stores are full. So I don't know. That's a pretty good deal for Ukrainians at this point.
And of course, the other alternative is the Russians take whatever they decide to take, and then they set up another Ukrainian state, a kind of a rump state, which is essentially a puppet state of Russia. It becomes like another Belarus, where it's closely tied to Russia. It's not truly an independent state, just like our allies are truly independent states.
Sure.
And that is the future of Ukraine at that point. That also may be quite workable. I don't know to what extent they have that in mind.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim, for your patience, for coming on the show. It's always great to see you, to hear from you. Please come back soon.
Thanks, Jim. Great to see you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.